wonder why people don't want to become cops. Wonder why people, it used to be a respectable job, and it is still a respectable job, by the way. And I respect the hell out of our law enforcement men and women out there keeping this home front safe and day in and day out, because I couldn't even imagine, being a cop in this day and age. You couldn't pay me enough to do it.
But now we're starting to see, because of hiring standards changes, we're starting to see some woke officers. So they're woke. And,
how is that playing into the police force?
It is. I have chewed some ass on some cops. Like I had this one gal, she goes, "Can't you just leave him there?" And I go, "No, I can't." I go, "This guy has camped out in front of this business. He urinates and defecates in front of this store, right? They've kicked him out a bunch of times." I go, "So he's now," and this is extortion. This is street terrorism.
Oh, we got fucking Martha Stewart with a badge.
Give me food, or else I'm going to sit here and poop on your doorstep every night. You'll have to clean it up and whatever. And they'll go into the subway in National City. This guy will go in and he'll say, "Give me a sandwich." And they used to say no. And he'd go, "Oh yeah." And he would drop trouser right in the middle of lunchtime and just diarrhea all over the floor. It's an open food preparation area. If you have feces exposed to the air where you prepare food, it's a mandatory 48-hour shutdown, and they have to sterilize everything, right? So this guy just put this restaurant out of business for 2 days. Okay, tell me that's extortion. Give me a sandwich, or I will conduct this criminal act that harms you financially. Extortion. That's what it is.
That black and white.
Black and white. And this gal comes out and she's like, "Well, so the way one of the mitigation methods that my company uses is now everybody's worried about hepatitis C and COVID. Well, there's health and services codes. So California has legalized almost every criminal activity in the world.
Yeah.
Except those that they need to use when they're going to go after somebody. So health services. So if you're a conservative business owner and you've been saying bad things about the governor, right? Oh, we're going to come in and you're in violation of this health services program. Well, those are still all misdemeanors and felonies. Right. So, well, if you're going to use it against my clients, I'm going to use it against you. So I'm like, hey, this individual has hepatitis C. I'm sure the mayor does not want it on the news that you guys are letting these guys urinate and defecate with spreading hepatitis C. And you got to remember, a couple of years ago, we lost 638 people to hepatitis C in San Diego, MRSA, AIDS, all that stuff. So we started saying, oh, I'm not removing him because he's trespassing and homeless. I'm removing him because he's a disease vector.
Oh, shit.
And then they have no choice. And then they have to call out the ambulance, right? And then the ambulance, so they have a thing. So patients' rights privilege says that you can't record a patient, right? So I'll be sitting there recording, and the ambulance driver will say, hey, patient privilege, you're not allowed to record that. And I go, are you telling me he's a patient? And he goes, yes. And I go, good, now he's yours. You have to take him. So and because they'll go, and I'm like, hey, I'll stop recording, but now he's your responsibility. Until then, he's my contact. So it's these outside, this is my business model I'm giving you, but this is why my security company is so much more successful than the other competing companies, is because we're thinking outside the box, developing solutions for these businesses.
Listen, they fucking line out the rules and you say, fine, we'll play by the fucking rules. But guess what? We're going to figure out, we're going to figure out how to use those rules that you're saying we can apply them to you now to make you your problem again, when it should already be your problem.
So it's creative thinking, and that's how we're mitigating, getting rid of these homeless people. I call up and I say, hey, we have bloodborne pathogens. We have guys with needles. Yeah. I'm like, oh yeah, he's flinging blood around, right? That's a song. So feces, poop is a deadly weapon. Yep. And they would come out, these cops would come out and go, feces, they go, her throwing poop is not, so.
Yeah, until you get a hepatitis fucking turd in your eye.
I did. So we had this drug dealer up in Escondido. She threw poop, got in my eye, and instead of, it got up under my eyelid, and I got cellulitis. I looked like freaking the Elephant Man. I had big, huge swollen forehead. So I'm talking, and the doctor goes, hey, he goes, you need to be careful. And I go, doc, I wear glasses. I go, but it was loose stool. It got my grossest thing in the world, right? Yeah. She literally reached down her pants and threw it at me.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, doc, and he goes, you don't understand. That is lethal force. If that infectious material would have gone around your eye to your optic nerve and gone to your brain, cellulite,
you would have fucking died.
You would have died. You would have died. I was 2 or 3 days in the hospital and 6 weeks recovery, massive antibiotics and the whole 8 yards. And he goes, if it would have gone around your eye, you'd be dead. It would have gotten into your brain. You would have had an infection in your brain that would have just killed you. Because it's, this swelling outside the skull is okay. Do that inside the brain, you're dead. So,
wow.
So throwing poop is deadly force. And I'm
That's
like, really?
Nuts.
I need a statement for you because I'm about ready to start shooting these people. Because I get poop thrown at me all the time. My officers do, and I have to make sure that they're gloved up, glasses, the whole 9 yards.
That makes my stomach just churn, dude. Really does.
That's the environment that we're dealing with.
It's a sad state of affairs. Really is, man. This, how we've come from, policing on the streets and making sure, listen, we've always had a criminal problem, right? But we contained it, but now it's uncontainable. Now it's just like loose free game. And they're just like, listen, I understand I'm not going to go to jail.
Politicians saying, I will make sure that your criminal child does not serve any time in jail if you vote for me. Right. And you've got all these moms who their baby, right. These baby mama moms, right. There's no structure. There's no father figure in the household. So they're raising these kids, and who are their role models? The gang members on the street. So they go up, and because mom's a single mom working a job,
sure,
not taking care of the kids. And so this is my plug right now for one of my charities. So there is a charity here in San Diego called Nativity Preparatory Academy. And what we do is we take kids from single parent or foster homes or distressed family situations. We have a couple of vans. We go around San Diego. We pick them up 6 o'clock in the morning. We bring them in. We feed them breakfast. They go to school. We have all volunteer college professors. We have some of the top educators in San Diego. They volunteer their time to teach these kids. They go through regular. So some of them come in and they're supposed to be in 5th grade, but they're actually working at a 3rd grade level. Yeah. We bring them up to grade level, take them all the way through high school, right? And then when they graduate, we fast track them into St. Catherine's University or prep over in La Jolla prep, or we fast track them into local universities. And we get them scholarships, get them squared away. But while they are at Nativity Prep, they are given 3 square meals, their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They have chores that they have to do. And that applies, they get money that gets applied to a commissary account, and they learn how to balance a budget, balance a checkbook, use their commissary account so they can buy extra stuff. They can buy extra clothes for themselves. They can buy clothes for their mom. They can bring home groceries for their family. These are kids
that's amazing.
From 1st grade to high school level, and we bring them up, we get them to surpass grade level. These people are, if you go online and look, Nativity Prep, truly doing God's work. These, not a bad thing about them. All they are doing is helping make better citizens. They're taking kids off the street. So, and then the kid at 8 o'clock, he gets dropped off at home. He's been fed. He has all of his stuff. The mom has had a stress-free day. She's been able to go to work. We've been able to take that load off of her, and we're making a more stable family environment for that child. And we're already seeing kids that have gone. So a couple of years ago, we had our first full class graduate, the kid that started with us. And now we're starting to see these college graduates that are going out, they're getting successful, high-paying jobs, and they're coming back, either donating time at the Preparatory Academy or donating money, and we're starting to see it come back.
Dude, that's amazing. I mean, amazing thing that you're doing, because that's the change that needs to happen. That kind of change is what needs to happen across the United States. Absolutely. You know what I mean? That's how we fix our streets. That's how we.
I'm involved with charities. I'm involved with veterans charities. I'm involved with, I'm pretty set financially in my world.
Yeah.
And so
you've done well. You've done well for yourself.
Yeah. But that's veterans. So my therapy for the way that the court system treated me when I came back, got divorced from my first wife. The court treated me. All she had to do was walk in and say, "Oh, he's a Marine, he's abusive." I've never been convicted of a crime in my life, right? Never laid a hand on him.
This was your first marriage?
Yeah, this was my first marriage.
And so it went like, that was a sour marriage? Like it went south quick?
Yeah, I don't want to say bad things about my ex. I try not to say bad things about anybody, but anyways, but I really got treated poorly by the court.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that I had done. Oh, he's an abusive cop. Oh, he's an abusive Marine. He comes home and, him and his Marines are out back and they're talking about when they shot somebody, in Mogadishu, they shot somebody in Iraq and that's the kind of environment my kids are. Man, my kids were in bed,
Yeah.
So, but the court used those things to try and take custody of my children away from me. And so my therapy is I donate time to Fathers Advocacy San Diego, which is a group that helps fathers retain custody of their kids, because I don't care what anybody tells you. San Diego County Child Support Services is a corrupt, terrible organization.
Fuck yeah, it is.
I mean, they submit false documents to the court. I filed a bar complaint against one of the attorneys down there.
My first ex-wife went to their mediation people or whatever. And actually I was working as a security guard in downtown. And my ex she just said, how much does he make? She's like, I don't know. I mean, she had access to all my bank accounts and she could figure that out. She's like, well, just put $6,000 a month. What? I wasn't even making a third of that. And I was like, what the fuck? And so when I got served, I looked at it, I was like, I wish I was making $6,000 a month.
Yeah, find me the money and you can have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Hell yeah. So I went there and filed whatever, a response to it. And actually she just ended up being just lazy and not following back up. So it was easy. That was an easy day for me. So
they went in and she did the same. She claimed that she only made $3,500 a month. Now I had subpoenaed her pay records through the court, right? Uh-huh. And so it was September of that year, and her pay stub showed pay year to date at over $90,000. Okay, September.
That's definitely more than $3,500 a month.
So and so she was a nurse. She was a nurse. She was working. Well, she had been working on college, but anyways, but she had made $90,000 to date, right? And I said, and he goes, and I go, but she's listing that she only makes $3,500 or $4,500 a month, and she's claiming that I make $9,000 a month. And I was making about $7,400, but that was honest. And I was showing. I submitted my bank account statement. I said, I'll give you the PIN number so that you can log on and look at my bank accounts at any given time. You show me where I'm making all this money. She goes, oh, he gets paid cash. And I go, man, once every 3 months, I'll go sit on somebody's house and they'll give me $200. I go, but I've never made more than $600 from any one person in cash in a year because you're required to claim it. I go, and I've never made more than $2,000 in cash throughout a year. I just don't do it that much. I'm too busy running my business. Yeah. I'm still a reserve in the Marine Corps, still doing reserve work with the police department. I go, I don't have, bullshit. So we go in there, and the guy at San Diego County Department of Child Support Services, and I go, you need to use her, this is her pay record, $9,000. You need to put that into your formula, and then you need to use my pay records and he goes, and he looks at me, and he picks up what she had filed, and he goes, yeah, we're going to use this. And I go, that's totally illegal. And he goes, totally just flat out corrupt, and and then they did other stuff, like they would suspend my security license for non-paying. So I got onto a payment plan, right? And then they would say, and they would suspend my license, and the judge would say, I would come in and I said, Your Honor, I am current. I have paid. Here's my receipts. This is, I've given her this money. Well, she didn't like it when I paid the state, because then she couldn't claim that I hadn't paid her, right? So she would come in, filed it, she hadn't received child support. Finally, I said, you know what, we're doing everything through the court. You want to talk to me? You send it to me in an email. If it's not verifiable, written, it's not. I told the judge, who was very much reluctantly agreed. And, but they would suspend my license, the San Diego County Department of Child Support Services. I would go in, I would present the canceled checks to the judge. The judge would say, okay, you're current, release the license. And I would go out and I would say, you need to release it. And they would go, oh, here's the receipt. And I go, no. You need to transmit it to the state because they won't release it unless it's transmitted from your law enforcement agency. And they would laugh at me and they'd go, yeah, good luck with that. And so I would go back into court. I would say, Your Honor, this attorney is refusing to follow the court order that my license be released. And she would say, Your Honor, Mr. Nulty's lying again. And I would say, Your Honor, go on the state website. It shows that my license is suspended. And then she would turn and she would go, why is it? And she goes, oh, well, the system is down. And she would snicker, full on knowing the system wasn't down. And they would they were corrupt in the most heinous sense of the word. And then I made the mistake. So I took all this documentation, right? Court orders, the lack of transmittal, and I go to that glorious law enforcement institution, the FBI. And I go, Jesus. This is public corruption, right? This is under the color of authority impacting my rights to the pursuit of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I go, because they are illegally suspending my license, causing me grave financial harm. The gal at the FBI, and you're going to like this, so the gal at the FBI goes, we have terrorists to catch, right? And I go, what terrorists have you caught lately? I'm like, you don't have terror. I go, this is public corruption. And she goes, do you think for 1 second the FBI wants to get involved where we go out and we make the Department of Child Support Services look bad? And I go, they are bad, And this female FBI agent, right? And so I turned the ringer off. I apologize. And so the FBI just literally, she kicks me out of the office, right? And I'm like, what a little, So I'd gone into their Arrow Drive office and I'd been interviewed, right? So a couple of years later, Ted's now the supervisor of the Human Trafficking Task Force. And guess who shows up to be on the task force?
Oh, that lady.
The same agent.
Oh, no.
And so I walked to the front room, looked at her, and I said, one of the cool FBI agents, I go, yeah, who is she? Why is she here? And he goes, oh, yeah, she's going to be on the team. And I said, absolutely not.
No.
And he goes, what? And I go, you are relieved. You need to really, and she didn't even remember who I was.
Yeah.
She goes, what's the matter? And I go, I know for a fact that you're a biased agent. I go, step outside and I'll talk to you in a minute. I conclude the meeting, get my people up and running. We're trying to track down these human traffickers. And I walk outside and her supervisor comes over and goes, what's the deal? And I go, at no time is she to come anywhere near these offices. I don't want her to have access to her stuff. And he's like, this is pretty serious. What are you doing? You're going to ruin her career. And I go, it should be ruined. I go, she's and he's like, so I come aside and so I start talking to him. I go, this is what happened. I go, and she chewed me out. She called me a deadbeat dad, even though I had all the records saying that I was never a deadbeat dad. I go, she called me a deadbeat dad. She said, and I told him exactly how she treated me. And I go, she's not willing to even look at the facts. She wouldn't even open the box. She's like, we're not going to the FBI is the premier law enforcement. We're not going to get involved in trying to make the San Diego child support, right? So he's like, oh my God. He goes, you know what she went through to try and get on this task force? I go, I don't care what she did. She's not coming on. And I'm the guy.
Not while I'm in charge.
Not while I'm in charge. And so he was like, and I was expecting to get sued from that.
You didn't?
No, because I was able to give the date, the time, and they had a recording of the interview. And that kind of put the nail. She's no longer with their agency. So.
I could only imagine, good on her, man. Good on you. I mean, good on you.
Her supervisor was like, really? I'm like, yeah. I go, and I'm not going to have, I go, call it revenge, call it petty, call it whatever. But I'm basing my decision on my prior knowledge of her behavior as a law enforcement officer.
We call that karma.
That was a big
fucking karma right here.
Right on her desk.
Yeah.
So it was.
So you went. I mean, that's taking an emotional toll on you. I mean, because now, your business is being threatened. Your livelihood is getting stripped and continuously.
That's what gave me PTSD. Iraq, Afghanistan, that doesn't give me PTSD. What gives me PTSD is coming home, not committing a crime, not doing anything wrong, and then having the court label me in front of my children as, and they're trying to make me out of this baby killer image and all this stuff. My kids have never been abused a day in their life.
Right.
My kids are so
abused with love.
Yeah. But don't get me wrong. I fully believe in giving a good spanking.
Hell yeah.
My one time my dad gave me a spanking for something I did. I go, and he later found out that I didn't. And I go, yeah. So and he goes, shut up. He goes, I know you did something anyways that you got away with. So just take it on account, and I'll I'm like, and I did so much. I earned so many butt whippings that I didn't get.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, yeah, you got a point,
Yeah, I'll take the licking.
Yeah. So, I think a lot more kids should get their butts.
So how'd you help? What helped you go through all that time? Was it like, did you have like a hobby, or did you go to therapy? Or
I did. I went. I talked. I didn't. Therapy didn't do that much. We went to a marriage counselor. A marriage counselor just flat out, told my ex. She goes, you're destroying the marriage. And so I knew what that was. But my therapy was working for Father's Advocacy, helping out other people that and let me tell you, they abused some people, just horrible. I went and I helped a young Marine captain. He had been deployed overseas. He had a daughter. She went to San Diego State University. She turns 18. He lets her move into his apartment, right? But he's told DFAS, the military pay, that as of this date, she's 18. I'm no longer responsible for paying child support. He's still sending his kid money. He's letting her live in his apartment. Well, first month goes by, second month goes by, and San Diego Department of Child Support Services garnishes his wages, right? Then, so you know what it's like in the military. When you're an officer in the military, right? He gets a legal hold notice. He's a company commander in the Marine Corps Infantry, stellar career, right? And all of a sudden they pull him out of the field and say, hey, you got to go back home and get your stuff squared away, and you're getting your first signing, right? You know what a signing is?
I don't.
So in the Marine Corps, you get fitness reports. You get a
yeah.
So you get an adverse page
evaluations. Yeah.
So they pull this guy who's a leader of men out of combat. So he comes back and he comes in. Well, it turns out what happened was they start garnishing his wages, even though he has legally met all obligations, right? And they start garnishing his wages. Well, what happens is they take that money and they give it to his ex, right? That she's no longer entitled to this money.
Right.
So he comes back.
And this kid's not even living with his ex. He's living at his house.
Yes. And he's supporting her. She's at San Diego State University. So then he says, so the judge goes, you're absolutely right. We're going to go ahead and write a letter saying you're exonerated, send it to the Marine Corps, right? But then he goes, well, I want my money back. And they go, no, you can't have your money back. And he goes, why? He goes, you illegally garnished my wages and gave it to my ex. They go, once it's distributed, you have no legal recourse. And they took like $8,000 of his money. And they said, no, you're not getting it back. And then when he goes in, so I'm in there and I'm helping him prepare his case and stuff like that. The lady from Department of Child Support Services says, well, you shouldn't have stopped paying us in the first place. And he goes, I wasn't obligated to. And she goes, it doesn't matter. You keep paying and then you sort it out. And he goes, but you still would have given the money to my ex, right? And she goes, yes. And I still couldn't have got it back, right? And she's all, yes. And he goes, so what's the excuse for your behavior? And she goes, it happens. And it's like, you ruined this guy's life for months,
Fuck.
And he's got it. And it doesn't matter. Your first signing, when you get an adverse page 11, legal hold, pulled out of the field when you're on deployment,
you're fucked.
You're screwed. Your military career is hosed, and all of this, and it was done by incompetence and intentional negligence. So that's all I'm going to say about San Diego County Department of Child Services. But ask me my opinion on that. That was my opinion.
I think it's very loud. It's very clear, man. It's like crisp,
Yeah. So and it was. Those were the bad things, but that's how I dealt with it. And I deal with it by being involved in some of the most awesome charity triple B adventures. We call it beers, bonding, and brotherhood. Brotherhood, bonding, and bonfires. We're not supposed to have beer in there. There's a lot of beer in there.
Right.
But we take families.
It's a silent B at the end.
Yeah. Star and Blue Star families. We take the kids out camping. I take them out shooting at my ranch. I have a full-blown 12-acre ranch that's a shooting facility out in Anza-Borrego. We take the kids out camping, riding quads and dirt bikes. And that's great there because you actually get to interact with kids whose dad's been gone for months. The mom's stressed out. We help them with groceries. We help them with that kind of stuff.
That's amazing, man. I mean, it really, really is, you know, the generosity that you give out. But not only that, but how you dealt with your situation.
It's selfish. Don't get me wrong. That was my therapy.
Sure.
I mean, that's how I dealt with it. So it's not, don't count it towards generosity. That's how I dealt. It's more a case of me flipping the bird at the system and saying, screw you, I'm still going to help these people.
Yeah, you know? Absolutely.
That's how I'm dealing with it. It's not some great, it's a selfish thing. These are not.
I mean, that's okay to have. That's okay to be like, hey, listen, fine. You did this to me. I'm going to do my best to make sure this doesn't happen to other people. And I want to back them up. Like, you know, how do you give 2 big middle fingers? By helping other people through it and saying, screw you, fuck with them, see what happens. You know, it could cost you your career, you know, like, and rightfully so, man. It needs to be wiped clean, man. I think there needs to be the overhaul of it. So what do you do? What's your number one hobby you got right now? I mean, you talked about guns.
Oh, I shoot. I used to be a competitive shooter.
Oh, fuck. Okay. I was about to challenge you to a shooting contest. I am not going to do that now.
See, now, if you go on Amazon and you read the reviews, some of the people have read my book. They've met me out at shooting competitions, and read some of the reviews on Amazon. They're like, all right, there's this guy, Sig Sauer. Although I can't say anything. They wrote a really flattering article about me when I was shooting competition. I'm old now. I'm in master's division. I mean, I'm getting a shot string off now.
So master's division is just another classification saying you're old.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
so I was really competitive, and then all of a sudden I was an old guy.
So after master's, is it catheter division?
No, master's is it. But I'll tell you what, there's some bubbas that shoot master's division that are really. I mean, you look at Jerry Michulik. I mean, that guy is insane. I mean, I'm not even 1% of what he is, you know? I mean, this guy, he can throw a can up in the air, shoot from the hip and hit a can like 3 times. Man, I need to be on my sights, and I'm lucky if I can hit the can 1 out of 10 times. I mean,
fuck.
You know, so my, you know, I'm good. I'm fast, and I'm good with my tactics, and I'm really good with a rifle, a smoke pole. Like my Barrett, if you're within 1,600 yards of me, you can
hit a 1,600-yard target.
Yeah, I will hit an 8-inch plate at 1,600 yards.
We gotta go shooting.
Come out to my ranch.
Let's go. Let's do this. So you're also an avid scuba diver, right?
Yes. So my wife, my current wife, my forever wife, I'm hoping she sees this, honey. So Donna, sort of being a saint, she's an addict. So it would have been so much easier for me if I would have got her addicted to crack cocaine. However, I got her
probably cheaper, right?
Yeah, a lot cheaper. So I got her addicted to scuba diving. So we spend about 10 days every month traveling somewhere in the world and scuba diving. Belize. My daughter is so I was a combat swimmer in the Marine Corps when I was doing all my cool training. So I'm a diver. And I kept telling my kids, hey, come scuba diving, and telling, you know, and my first one, no, there's too much training to do. And, you know, and my kids were like, oh, we have to go to class. I don't want to go to class. And so finally we get to Maui, and we love it. And this dive shop has a discovery dive where they take you out for 2 dives. Yeah. Go to a little half-hour class. Yeah. And they take you out and you actually do 2 dives. And right there at Kaanapali, Airport Beach, and then Mala Ramp, which is the sea turtle heaven. So we go out there and we get on our first dive, right? And I'm having a good old time, right? I'm back in my element. And we go down and we hit 40 feet, and this gorgeous moray eel, it looks like lava. It's red and orange, and just this phenomenal looking, beautiful animal swims right past us. And my daughter's going like this. And then this sea turtle comes by him, you know? So we finish the dive, we come to the surface, and my wife's face mask looks like her head exploded. Her eyes are this big, and she's on the surface, and she's shaking, and she goes, that was the coolest thing I did in my life. And I go, whoa, whoa, whoa. I go, second coolest thing after marrying me, right? And she's like, in all honesty, you're like 3rd or 4th behind the kids and some other stuff. I'm like, okay. But my daughter comes to the surface, and she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I'm like, really? And she goes, yes, whatever it takes. This is what I want to do. So I paid for her to go through IDC instructor development course. She's now a master scuba diver instructor, and
Nice.
she's the dive captain for Dive Maui. If you're going to go diving on Maui, go to Dive Maui, ask for Abby. There's my shameless plug. And she is living her best life. She gets tipped every day, and she goes, my office is silent because people can't talk to you. All you got to say is signals, you know?
Her office is paradise.
It's like,
You know,
done, going up, you know?
and if you love diving, let us know where your favorite spot is, you know, and somewhere new and exciting that isn't just tourist the shit out of, you know? So where's your favorite spot? Like
Cathedrals, Lanai, the island of Lanai.
where's that?
Hawaii.
In Hawaii?
So
Really?
Yeah, you take a boat across from Maui, and they have, I'll send you some pictures. It is the most beautiful underground. There's all these arches, and Cathedral number 1 is their lava domes that were formed when the islands were formed.
Yeah.
And then when they cooled, they cracked. But Cathedral number 1, the ceiling fell. It's a rectangular piece of the ceiling, fell and landed right in the middle of this sandy chamber. And the light comes through, and it looks like the cathedrals in Rome. That's why they call it cathedrals. And it is the most stunningly beautiful place. The light comes in, and they have little soldier fish that are red, same color as the Vatican Guard, right? And they have a confessional. So you swim up, there's the altar, sunlight streaming through, angels are singing, right? I mean, it's one of the most beautiful places on earth. God created this most beautiful, and then you go over to this side chamber, and there's a puffer fish, and he comes out and takes your confession. It's for real. Cathedrals. Anybody who's broken.
Fuck, I have to go.
You got to go. You dive, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Come out.
Yeah.
Come visit us in Kaanapali. Yeah. I'll take you diving to all the best spots. Bring the kids.
Done.
Well, yeah. So the cathedrals. We've done everything. The Blue Hole in Belize. All over.
Is the Blue Hole in Belize as amazing as everybody says it is? And the show wouldn't be made possible without our sponsors, Red, White, and Badass Brew, and Go Man Go Productions.
Baby, I can't make a move like a child, a star for love that flows to the sea. Baby, if you run away, baby, if you leave, I'm so in love with you, girl. You make me feel brand new. Come on, give it up to me. Let me take care of you. I know that your mama said I'm gonna make
you. No, it's horrible. Sorry, I had to say that.
Is it?
So we're in Ambergris Caye. All the dive shops come out of Ambergris Caye.
Okay.
So it's a 3.5 hour choppy boat ride in this boat. 3.5 hours.
Take your Dramamine.
It's a cattle car. You get out there, you stop, you jump in, and because it's a deep dive, you're going down to 150, 160, depending if you're a mixed air, exotic air breather, if you're running trimix or whatever, you can dive down deeper, but most recreational divers are limited right at 160 feet. So you go down there, you swim around, there's some stuff, but your bottom time is only 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So you descend, everybody meets up on this sandy shelf, you go over the edge, and it's cool. It's a one and done. It's
once you do it, you don't ever need to go back to it.
Don't need to go do it again. The fingers off of Belize, the reef along Ambergris Caye is amazing. So But yeah, so Blue Hole was good. I am the fish whisperer. So see, now you say that, but I have a very intimate relationship with a Mexican hogfish and a shark in Cabo Pumo, down next to Cabo San Lucas.
What kind of shark?
La Paz. So Cho-Cho is a 8.5-foot female bull shark. She's docile.
Fuck you. Really? A bull shark?
My best friend. Yeah. Oh, she'll swim right up, put her head in your lap. You can pet her.
No.
So Cabo Pumo is a marine preserve.
Oh,
so
okay.
The sharks are so well fed. It's amazing. Right?
Okay. All right.
Tons of bull sharks. If you go online and talk about Cabo Pumo, the bull sharks are all over the place. So I'm down there. My very first dive down there, we're diving a wreck called El Vencedor. Super popular. We get to the bottom and I start swimming and this hogfish swims out. Now, something has tried to eat him in the past because the bottom of his tail fin is bitten off and it's torn in half, right? So very unique looking fish. Comes out and he starts rubbing up against my arm and he's like a puppy dog. He's swimming around and he comes up and he looks at me and he swims off, right? So I get my finger down and I dig a sand crab out for him. He comes over and snatches the sand. I have all video. I have video documentation to prove this because people will go, no way, this doesn't happen, right? So this fish starts following me around no matter where we go. We'll go out into the sand flats to be with the bull sharks. None of the other fishes leave the wreck because the bull sharks will eat them, right? This guy comes out and he stays right next to me the whole time. And like I'll flick seashells at him and he'll swim after them and fetch them, pick them up and bring them back to me.
Wow. No
so,
way.
And I have video, right? So we come to the surface. This is my first dive on the wreck.
You got to send us the video.
So I asked the dive guy, I go, hey, is that fish like that with everybody? He's like, what fish? And I'm flipping out my GoPro and I'm like, this fish. And he goes, never seen it before. And this guy, Alex, he's like the dive master for the shop down there. And he's all, I've never seen that fish before, right? So over the course of the next 2 years, I dived the site 5-6 more times. Every time, as soon as I hit the bottom, it's like 45 feet deep.
Yeah.
As soon as I hit the bottom, this fish is like right there and he's growing and growing and I'm videotaping him, right? And my wife is over me by this time, right? So like I get to the bottom and I'm like, look, my fish is here. You know, and I'm happy. I'm like a kid in a candy store, you know? So I sit on the bottom and I play with my fish, right? And my wife's like, F you. And who's my dive buddy, right? In the military, right. Dive buddies never separate. My wife's like, whatever, he's your dive buddy. And she's off swimming around the wreck with the rest of the dive group. And I'm just ecstatic that this fish. So finally this last year, and I'll send you more video. So he is now gone. When I first met him, he was like this big. Now he's like shoulder width. He's good size. So they only allow so many divers on the wreck in a month. So we got there at the end of the month. The wreck was closed for diving. And I'm like, I'm so bummed I'm not going to see my fish, right? But you can dive the reef right next to the wreck. So we start doing a drift dive. They drop us off upstream, and we're cruising along Los Moros. It's called Los Moros Reef. And all of a sudden, I feel this bonk on my leg, and I look down, and my fish has swum a 1/4 mile from the wreck out to be with me, right? And he circles around me, and he always smells my fins. So I use Sea Wing Novas.
Okay.
Right? Scoop Pro Sea Wing Novas. Yep. They're high performance fins. He goes over, and as soon as he smelled my fins, he just starts going crazy. He's swimming around me again, and you can't miss him because the bottom of his fin is you can't.
It's a unique identifier to that fish.
And the fact that he crawls into my lap, and I'm like, and I'm sitting there with tears. So we get to the bar. So we finish our dive day. We get to the bar, right? And I'm telling some friends, I'm like, yeah, I got to see my fish. And look at that. And I'm showing him the videos. I go, he swam a 1/4 mile to see me. He had to smell me when I was upstream to come out and meet me, And I'm sitting there, and this guy at the next table goes, that's cool. I got a whale. And I look over at him, and he goes, yeah. And he whips out his phone. And so it happens that about 5 or 6 years before, he had been out. He's an avid scuba diver. He had been out at La Paz, and they came across a female California gray whale that was in distress. She was tangled up in some fishing line, some fishing net, and some other stuff. And he's like, so he jumped in, and he went over, and she's just barely being able to stay up and breathe. She's having to inhale to keep positive buoyancy and then hold her breath. And she's trying to kick her flukes, but she was just exhausted. And he's got video too. Yeah. So this guy jumps in, goes over, and she has where, the gray whales get barnacles on their face and stuff. So she has a barnacle scar right under her eye that looks just like a 4-leaf clover, right? So he goes over there and he's got this video and comes up and just this soulful look, this whale's looking at him, right? So he goes back there and he spends like 2 hours just sawing through netting, and it's cut into her flukes and it's cut into her, right? And he's sawing, and finally it breaks free, right? And she just sits there for a while, just breathing and relaxing. And he swims up and he pets her by the eye, and she moans. She makes this noise. So he tries to imitate it and he moans back to her. And she moans again. And so he sits there and he spends like 5 hours with this whale in the water, on the surface, mask and snorkel, no dive gear, no nothing. Yeah. And he just pets her and stays there. Finally, she gets her strength back and she swims away. So the next year at calving season, he goes out there and he jumps in the water, and just as a joke, he moans again, right? Yep. And then he throws on his scuba gear and he does his dive. And as he's coming back to the surface, he sees a gray whale, takes his regulator out and moans, right? Whale does a 90-degree turn, dives down, comes up, looks at him, same eye, same scar, and they go to the surface together. Wow. And she sits there and she breaches and plays with them. 5 years in a row, this guy's going down there and he's meeting this whale. And he's got these videos. And I'm like, so now I have totally been emasculated as like the king. Yeah, right. And I'm like, yeah, but do you have a shark? And he's like, no. He goes, those are bull sharks, right? And I go, check this out. So I show him a picture of Chocho, right? Now, Chocho is not the world's biggest bull shark, but she's pretty close. 8.5 feet is huge for a bull shark. And 8.5 foot bull shark is monstrous. So Chocho, it was funny. My wife was down on the bottom and we were letting the shark swim around us. And Chocho swims up. I'm on this side of my wife. Chocho swims up and stops maybe 10 feet from my wife and stops. And from my angle, there's my wife and her head and the tip of her fins. And there's this much Chocho over here and this much. So looking at that, I'm like, that's a fucking 10-foot shark, She about 8.5. And she just swims up, and ever since, and we're sitting out there, and she'll come right up. The male bull sharks, they're like 5 to 7 feet. Yeah. They get testy. If she shows you too much love, they'll come over and bump you. And you really? You have to violently blow bubbles at them and stuff like that.
That's crazy, man. I love your stories, and we're going to be definitely talking some more stories with scuba, man. I love it. That's a therapy for me, is some scuba diving. So you got your poem? You got your poem ready?
Oh, you ready? Yes,
let's do it, man. Hit me with some poetry.
Okay. Read out of here.
It's all right.
Okay, so this is a poem by Ted Nulty. It's called Those Days. Are you ready? If I get a tear out of you, I'm telling you, I miss those days, the ones that have gone by, when I looked with wonder at the big bright sky, back in my innocent time. Yeah, I miss those days. I miss those days when my kid held my hand as we walked on the beach, our toes in the sand, the salt on her face. Oh, I miss those days. These days I see the anger on the street, the self-involved people whose eyes you can't meet. What happened to yes, sir, no, ma'am, and please? Man, I miss those days. Where are those days when I do meant for life, when relationships weren't disposable and our kids knew no strife? Boy, we need those days. We need those days with both parents at home, big family dinners, all smiles, no phones. Please, let's make those days. Who are we now when we talk about race? Why do we see color instead of a pretty face? We should all be kind to each other. Yeah, I'd love those days. I remember those days, Semper Fi and never alone, standing with my brothers, some whose names are carved in stone. Sometimes I relive those days. I miss those days from so long ago, just a flicker in my memory. What I can't remember, I don't know. I think I miss those days. I miss those days, the ones yet to come. There's so much potential for me and everyone. I hope we get it right. Yeah, I want to see those days. So
wow, man.
Yeah, so
That's fucking good, dude.
Yeah,
I like that.
Got me onto the American Poet Society scene, and so I wrote some other stuff. A lot of it I've never put out, especially when like when I was angry, I would write poems about the injustices and stuff like that. And so I've had a couple of people approach me to do songwriting and some other stuff like that. So
that's awesome, man. All right, we're plugging your books.
We're plugging my books?
Yep, plugging your books, man. Tell me about your books.
So, the very first book that I completed is The Locker. It's every stupid thing I did in the Marine Corps, every stupid thing I did as a cop, all rolled into a book. 270,000 copies sold worldwide. This book is on all 7 continents, including Antarctica. So if you go to the research station down in Antarctica, I have a picture of my book. A friend of one of my publishers went out there, and he actually sent me a picture. He said, "Ted, your book is one of the favorite books down here that the researchers all read. Because when they go dark during the winter, all they do is read books and watch Netflix." You know? So this book is on all 7 continents, which is a huge point of pride with me to think that I've entertained people around the world. That they've actually liked my book that much. So, and this is my first bestseller. The next is Gone Feral. So Horror News Magazine said that this is the best zombie novel ever written, and there's no zombies in it.
Wow.
So I thought that was a pretty cool claim to fame right there.
Hell yeah.
So
you need to frame that.
Yeah. So Horror News wrote the review, and they said everything is so real in this book. It's totally frightening. It's a must read. So this is another. This developed into the UK is really into horror and zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
So Gone Feral means the attack. It's a chemical attack on the United States. You've heard of bath salts, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a type of bath salt called Flocka, and they call it the zombie drug. And it literally turns you into a zombie, and you become a cannibal. I don't know if you remember a few years ago, the naked guy on the overpass in Florida.
Yeah.
Exactly. He was under the influence of Flocka.
Fuck.
Right. So I watched that news clipping, and I was like, oh my God. And then I started doing research, and I'm like, what is this stuff that people are? It turns out some clown, instead of cutting his dope with baking soda, he cut it with dried bleach. So instead of using sodium bicarbonate, he's using sodium hypochlorite, right? This stuff, and it destroys the blood-brain barrier, and the chemicals concentrate in the fatty cells of your brain, make you nuts. You lose all inhibitions, and you become a cannibal. You run around in rage as a cannibal. So I thought, oh man, there's a story in there. So this is a total work of fiction. A lot of Marines, a lot of military, good shoot 'em up stuff in here.
Nice.
But this came out and immediately shot to the bestseller list in the UK. And so I get a Facebook message from this girl, and she goes, "Hi, I'm the president of your fan club, right?" And to me, I'm like, I've sold 6 books. How big of a fan club can I have? And it's this group of people in the UK that get around and read horror books. And when they find an author they like, they just say, "Okay, we're your fan club in the UK." Is what they did, right? And I'm like, I'm still this young rookie author at this point. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so. And they're like, "Can we Zoom call with you? And would you sign a book to us?" I go, "Give me all your names. I'm going to send you all an autograph copy." I'm like, I got a fan club, right?
Oh shit, you made it.
So Catherine, who I love, Catherine, if you ever see this podcast, I still love you guys over there. So she's like, "Yeah, I'm the president of the fan club." And so she's like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest author." And so other people start reaching out to me, and I start getting some traction, and my sales just rocket in the UK. Then all of a sudden, my publisher, Susie, calls me and goes, "Hey, are you going to write a sequel to Gone Feral?" And I go, "I don't know, am I? And she goes, "I'm going to send you a file. This is what's coming into Amazon right now. right? And I go, okay. So I get an email and there's a zip file, and I click on the zip file and it's 3,200 emails, right? Of all these people that have read this book and absolutely love it. 90% of them are women. This is where I'm going to say right now that I absolutely adore the female species. I love women. You all are crazy. Because women are sending me, they're like, oh my, so there's a
shit. That's Ted Nulty saying that. That is not Dustin Hayes saying that. I do not think you're crazy, and I'm single. So,
anyway, so these women are sending me these emails, and they're like, oh, you know, is Barry based on your son? Which Barry was partially based on my son, who just bailed out of the office. I said, yeah, you know, and I'm answering all these fan emails and stuff, but there's 3,200 emails. And they're like, when are you going to write a book about Barry? Barry, this 12-year-old character in here. And I only used him as an arc to bring two groups of survivors together, right? So he was kind of a minor character. And then when I revised the book, I made him into more of a character. And they're screaming for me to write a book about Barry. So it took me a year to write this book. Right? So as soon as my publicist goes, write something about Barry, right? Meanwhile, these women, so I have a P.O. box for my my author mail to go to, right? And these women are, again, my life with granny panties showing up in my life, right? Women are mailing me their underwear, sending me pictures, you know, all this other stuff. I'm like, whoa, I'm married, you know, and they're like, well, I mean, are you married, or are you just married, or, you know, and I'm like, whoa. I go, my wife can bench press both of us. Just stop, you know. And so, anyways, so I sit down. So these books took me a year. So I sit down and I write Barry's Walk. These are all available on Amazon. All available. You can get them at Barnes & Noble, Barnes & Noble Plus. I'm plugging these, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna wait till you got done talking about, but fuck it, let's go, man. Plug them. Where do you get them? Amazon.
Amazon's the number one publisher of books in the world. So, so I sit down, and I started writing on the 1st of October, and on the 30th of October, 30 days later, I hit the end, and I wrote this book in 30 days. Right?
Wow.
This is the first book Amazon had that had verified reviews, no backlink reviews, verified reviews, had perfect 5-star reviews for 8 months. No other book has come on the shelf and done that well review-wise. Now, sales were mediocre, and they were almost all repeat sales off of people that had read through. Then some people got a hold of it and go, oh, this is so, but this tells Barry's story. So I had to use a section of this book as middle filler. I expanded on it and wrote it, but there's a lot of the same material in the books. So a lot of people didn't like that. They're like, I read Gun Feral. I didn't want to reread it in Barry's Walk, but it just expanded upon his time, because I couldn't just leave the middle out of his story.
Right. That's part of the story.
Yeah. So I took some heat for that, and I probably could have written it a little different or taken it out of here, but anyways, I wrote it. The fans love it. And so this is book 2 in the Gone Feral series. There is a book 3. It's called A Day Better. The book 3 is called The Other Side of Me. And it's written from the perspective of one of the ferals, of one of the the cannibals. Yeah. So I had to write it as a psychopath. So I had to study what it's like to be an unrelenting killer. It was. So
who'd you study to get the
everything? Ed Gein, Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy. I studied all the classics. Yeah. Kind of got there. Then I read some. So remember, I was a psychology minor. Yeah. In college. So I knew where to dig for the psychological diagnoses and things that would happen, and how what true psychopathy is versus sociopathy. And I wanted these people that have no inhibitions, straight id. There's id, ego, and superego. And I wanted them to straight lizard brain, concerned about nothing but their drives. And what is the drive for a biological entity? Eat, reproduce, and eat, sleep, and fuck, right? So,
No, you can say, man, eat, sleep, and fuck.
So that's all these people want to do is eat other people, get it on with other people, and sleep. So and so I had to, but nothing was off limits. I wrote it. There's a rapey scene in there. And what was weird is I got 8 women that just were disgusted with the rape scene. They're like, oh my God. I had 8,000 women that were like, oh my God, that turned me on. And I'm like, really? I go, really?
Oh, shit.
And they go, just the way you described it. They go, oh my God. I go, but you understand it was rape, And they go, yeah, but you wrote it with such compassion. So the bad guy is named Elon Matthews, this feral individual. Yeah. They go, you wrote it with such compassion and you explained why he was doing it that I felt sympathy for him, and you just, I describe him as this muscular, very handsome man. He's a pastor, right? Who gets poisoned by
talk about putting a touch of evil on it.
Oh yeah, it was.
Oh man.
So there's some, and I'm not going to give you the plot twist.
No, don't. But you gotta get the book.
Yeah, all these people just came out. So I had some people criticize it, but most of them just loved it. And so we sent it out we do beta testing, right? Mm-hmm. We sent it out. So I wrote a G-rated version and I wrote the original version because I wrote this guy as a bad guy. As a matter of fact, he was one of the Marines that I served with. He's now a pastor, and he's and his kids loved Barry's Walk.
Yeah.
And they go, can you make my dad a bad guy? And I'm like, really? And I'm like, so I wrote him, and then when I was done, I wrote a G-rated version that the kids could read, but I wrote this XX rated version. Everybody loved it. They go, leave it like that. If people don't like it, screw them. They need to get a thicker skin. And so that's what happened.
Fucking amazing.
Yeah.
You got to get it now. You got to get Barry's Walk. You got to get Barry's Walk. You got to get the sequel to it.
And then the last book. So Barry's Walk, The Other Side of Me, and then the very last book in the series is called A Day Better Than Yesterday. And that's about the United States recovering from this horrible, nasty thing. Nice. And it's so there's a cliffhanger at the end of Barry's Walk. A couple of the characters are shot, and we don't know who lives and dies. There's a funeral, but I don't tell you who dies. And boy, I'll tell you what, you want to get fans angry. Yeah. I mean, they were showing up at my door with pitchforks and torches. They're like, who died? Who was it? And I'm like, wait.
Can't tell you. You gotta wait.
Wait till book 4. So book 3 comes out, and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, wait till book 4. And there's there
it is. Boom.
But my publisher, is sitting there saying, hey, Ted, that's traction. You keep it doesn't matter if they're happy with you or mad at you. They're going to buy that book to find out what happens.
Absolutely. Sweet, dude. That's awesome, man. So get the books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Yeah, I have a whole list of books in there. So I wrote a couple of charity anthologies for some kids. I wrote in a charity anthology for veterans. That's called Painted Mayhem. It's about sociopathic clowns, serial killer clowns. So we all wrote a story for that. And then I wrote a story called Ooey Gooey. It was a charity for a young heart patient, and a bunch of us got together and wrote stories for it. And it's called Bite Size Offerings. 2 books, the money 100%. None of us authors get royalties. And these are amazing authors. There's some guys in there that are just John Hancock, Sean Chesser, Mark Tufo.
And so you get these, and so you find these books. They're on Amazon and Barnes and Noble too.
Yes.
Okay,
absolutely.
so all these, and is there a website they can go to find all these books?
Amazon.
Yeah. Well, so they type in Ted Nulty.
If you put Ted Nulty, my name in the search bar, you're going to get a list of all the books that I've written, or I've helped people write, or I've written the foreword to it. I have a book in there. A friend of mine wrote it, Ronnie Molina. He's a martial artist. So he approached me writing the foreword about it because of my martial arts history and stuff. And so it's called Listening to the Masters. If you're into martial arts at all, read that book. We wrote that book with some of today's current martial artists, Gracie's, if you're into BJJ, karate, taekwondo, aikido, Grandmaster Funk. So I don't know who he is. So, but Ronnie Molina.
I'm going to pick it up, man.
Excellent. And it comes up under my name because I'm listed as one of the contributors. And so there's a couple of projects that I've Wild Awakening, Greg Matthews, he was attacked by a grizzly bear up in Alaska. And this is his story of how finding God helped him on his road to recovery. Horrible. If you ever saw The Revenant, where Leonardo DiCaprio gets torn up by the bear, that's literally based on Greg Matthews surviving this grizzly attack. It dragged him 2.5 miles into the woods by his head, completely degloved, took all the skin off of his head, from his neck up, was gone. Chewed him up all over the place. Just amazing man, amazing story. And I helped write the foreword for him and helped him write and when he was publishing. So I've only had 2 people who I've said, just shut up, don't worry about it, just write the book. And Greg Matthews and Ronnie Molina are those 2 people, both very talented individuals. And you'll see their titles in when you type in my name.
Hell yeah. Ted, I got to say something here. You know what makes you a badass?
Poetry. No?
Yes. Yeah. No, actually, absolutely. You let it on the line and you wrote it down and you brought it from the heart. You went through challenging times in your life, multiple times that your career was in jeopardy. Your businesses could have failed because of what you were going through personally, and you didn't fucking quit. No. You keep writing the books and you keep living the dream. And your heart of gold, helping people out. And not just because it's for the good. It's because it's for a goodful revenge. And that's what makes you a badass, Ted Nulty. You are a badass.
Can I if I get a little, I want one of these. So your coffee conversations, that needs to be made into a challenge coin. You need to make that into a challenge coin. I'll pay for it, but I want a badass. If you're gonna call me a badass and I have to accept it, we're gonna make challenge coins for guests that come on your show.
Dude, I love that. Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it, Ted. Thank you so much for fucking being on here, man. Thank you so much.
I had a blast.
Awesome. This isn't going to be the last time, my friend.
Oh, okay. Well, call me that. I kind of shot my wife. Unless we get into stories from work or whatever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where can we find your security company? Online too?
No. I'm what they call a boutique firm. I'm not taking any extra work on right now. I have, I hate to sound snobbish or stuck up, but I only specialized in distressed commercial properties. Sure.
They seek you out.
Yeah. I have a very hard time hiring people of the quality required to do this job. So I have like I said, I don't want to sound snobbish, but I have a very limited clientele. Uh-huh. I work by referral only. You have to be a known property manager in the area. You have to be kind of well received.
Sure.
I don't work for firms. I am at the point in my life financially where I don't need the money. I don't need the work. Yeah. I don't want to say that I don't want business. I'm just saying right now I have more work than I can take on. There's
awesome, Ted. Well, I've got to shut it off because I'm about to lose my memory on the card. So we're about to be dead. Thank you so much. And
I'll reach out to you for those coins.
Let's do it, man. I mean, dude, you said you're paid for it. Like, how can we not?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but we can work that out. Yeah. All right.
I'm getting coin number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll stamp it number 1. Awesome. If you have a heroic story and you'd like to share it, get in contact with us. Our information's in the bio. Also, don't forget to hit the subscribe, like, and share. And then I'll see you on the next episode, badasses.